Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of our startup series, Starting an ABA Practice, Should I or Shouldn't I? I'm your host, Amber Zooberg. I've been in the ABA field since 2006, and I've been a BCBA going on for 13 years. Prior to joining CentralReach, I worked in a variety of settings with many great organizations before deciding to start my own ABA practice. As a reminder, the information in this presentation does not constitute legal or clinical advice. Any decisions that you need to make should always be discussed with your attorney. For today's presentation, I'll be addressing asking yourself why now, overcoming fear, developing business skills, and identifying early solution partners. And then at the end, we'll close with a brief Q&A session. So asking yourself why now. I want you to ask yourself why now, and what's your why? What are you trying to solve? It's really important to know your why because it gives you drive and motivation. And your why could be many things. Some of you might want to start your own practice to have policies and treatment and care that align with your values. Having a value-based business is one of the main reasons I frequently see behind many new business practices. Maybe your why is monetarily driven. You might feel you or your colleagues have been undervalued as employees and you want to be able to pay staff fairly. Whatever your why, really dig into it. Do you have a true solution for your why, and is now the right time? Think about, are your hurdles worth the outcome? Would you just be exchanging one headache for another? Or would you be creating more problems and work for yourself by trying to improve things with your own business? Would it be better to try to improve your current place of employment than start something new? And more importantly, do you have the time to invest in your why? Running your own business is often harder, time-consuming, it can be inflexible, and can come at a high cost. But if you're truly invested in your why and feel that now is the time, I say go for it. I want to take a minute and talk about my why. So I was about 6 years into my ABA experience when I started flirting with the idea of creating my own practice. Up to that point, I'd worked both in home and clinic, private and public schools, and I'd worked with about 4 different organizations, and I really felt I could take everything I had learned and make it my own. And if you've worked a few places, you know there's usually something you don't agree with. A big one for me was client intake and oversized caseloads. I didn't like the limited discovery that went into the client intake. I'd often be given a new client with little information and that was it. And I'd never know if I was a good fit for their family or if the parent was truly invested in their care. It's sad but true. Some parents are more interested in you filling the time with their child than they are supporting their child's growth. And I felt I could do more good offering services to families who truly wanted to better their child's quality of life. And I wanted to get away from doing my best with those parents who weren't invested in the outcome. There's so many families out there desperate for services that I would see turned away because we didn't have the staff to, help them. So my why was to be able to offer the time and quality the clients deserved. And having my own practice, I could take fewer clients, which allowed me to offer flexibility and support. I would go and meet with families prior to saying, yes, we can start services, to really see if I was a good fit for their family and what they were looking for in services. And, I wanted them to know that if their child was having a meltdown in the middle of the store, I was a phone call away to talk them through it. So that was my why. And now that I shared my why, let's talk about how to overcome the feelings of fear of starting. Overcoming your fear. So you've decided you're ready to start building your own practice, but you're still a little worried about the what ifs. It's easy to say to have confidence and be passionate, be prepared. But what I can really find that drives the passion and confidence is what we just discussed, knowing your why. And if you connect every goal to a why, your goal has meaning and purpose. And your why will help you maintain that focus and allow your ideas to become easier to outline. You're focused on your reason you want to start your practice, and it's easier to decide what you should or shouldn't be doing because your priorities are linked to a purpose. So for me, tying my why to kind of overcoming that fear of, am I ready to start this? I kind of thought about my main why of wanting to provide more quality focused care to clients. So I knew, and it helped me decide, I don't want to have staff right away. I want to have my own business. I want to get things started. make sure I start it right and kind of ease into things. So I'm still aligned with my why of providing that quality and being available, but also, doing things my way. It really helped kind of drive me and set my goals. The second thing to think about is considering, starting now. You want to start small and break your goals down. Like most things in life, there's never a perfect time to start anything. So I think having your goals, break them down, use a timeline to set your mini milestones. This is going to take time and energy and focus, especially if you're working on this outside of your typical workday. So just as we shape behavior in ABA, taking small steps towards your goal will put you on the right course to success. It'll be a lot less stressful than jumping in and trying to run with everything all at once. So when I started to transition to my own business, I only had one kiddo at the time, but I was currently pregnant. And I was thinking, when is a good time to do this? I honestly thought, I want to do this now before I have a little baby at home to take care of. But I also had to consider I was working, at another clinic. I did know it would take time to get paid. I was worried, what happens if I don't have a client? What happens if I don't know how to bill? What happens if I don't have any money? My family depends on my money. So I thought it would be a great time when I, took a break from maternity leave to kind of ease into clients, ease out of my old job, but I needed to have that transition period where I still had pay coming in, and I had to kind of work those extra hours during, those off hours at my main job to make sure I had the billing in place and I had funds coming in before I fully transitioned away. I started seeing less clients at one job, took on a few new ones, but all of the credentialing, the networking, the startup of my practice, it took the time. So I had a mini timeline of goals when I wanted to have things set up to really make that transition easier. And another way to help ease your fears is really just to know your obstacles. So hurdles are going to be coming your way. You need to be prepared for them with anything, just being prepared, being aware of what your obstacles are going to be will really help you address them when they come about. So ask yourself, what could prevent me from accomplishing my goal? Plan out how you're going to handle each situation. Just like I had to do with my income, I had to think about what happens if I try to bill insurance and it's denied and I have no money coming in. I had to plan for savings. I had to plan for that transition of my job. What if I'm not good at working on my own? That's a big concern a lot of people have. Do you have a network of, coworkers or colleagues that you feel you could reach out to consult with? Do you have your mentor still? Working on your own is a big concern for a lot of people, especially if you're not starting off with a huge staff. It can get lonely, or you might need someone to bounce things off of. So thinking about any of those obstacles will really help you in the long run and just help you overcome that fear, because the more prepared you are, the more confidence you can have to really go with your passion and your why. So developing business skills, we talked a little about our why and how to overcome our fear of starting. Let's talk about the business skills that we need to succeed. So the planning process is going to be addressed more in detail in our next episode, but here's a few things that you want to start considering. Setting up your business structure. All of these items kind of funnel in to what you're going to need. Do you have a funding plan? Ideally, you probably need at least enough funding to cover 2 payrolls, even if it's just yourself. Clean claims, even if you're an expert with billing, can take 30 days to pay. And if you're new at billing, you're going to encounter errors. So do you have enough funding to cover you and your team during this time while you wait? The billing process. Do you have billing knowledge? Even if you're outsourcing the billing process to a third party, you still need to have a good basic knowledge of billing to make sure that they're doing their job properly and to understand any payer contracts that you might start to enter. Credentialing. If you want, went back. So credentialing, do you understand your credentialing process? Credentialing takes time and paperwork and continued maintenance, and your documentation for employees and clients. You want to consider any documentation you're going to need for employees and clients alike. Employees, for some basic ones, you'll need an employee handbook that lays out how to handle time off requests, vacation time, sick time, if you're offering that, any kind of benefits, as well as a pay schedule. You need to think about training materials as well. So if employees isn't a thing for you right now, you still need the client documentation. You'll need cancellation policies, privacy policies, insurance forms if you're doing insurance, scheduling, and assessment valuation forms. You also want to think about your state licensure and employment laws. So this will tie into documentation as well. You want to review your laws in your state concerning your practice, review suggestions on HIPAA policy, consent to treat forms, liability documents, and confidentiality statements. You're going to want a clear understanding of licensure and state employment laws, especially if you're going to bring on employees. Some things to consider are some IRS rules around independent contractors. I know there's been a lot of debate in the ABA world of, can RBTs be independent contractors? So definitely look into those to consider. Will you have independent contractors? Will you have regular employees? Know your laws around that. Also, if you're going to work out of a clinic, you will want to consider your state inspection rules as well. Then you have marketing and competitive analysis. So marketing, how are you going to market your business to let people know that you're available? Are you going to start out small? What strategies are you going to use? A competitive analysis can help with that. If you've done your research in the area to know who's offering what, it'll give you a better idea of how you can stand out to reach clients and potential employees. So for me personally, marketing, it really wasn't a thing. Like I said, I didn't want to start out with employees right away. I did have employees later on, but in the beginning, it was really just networking. I went, to some pediatric offices, gave them my cards, let them know I was available. I also was networked with TRICARE, so I called some of the nurses on base and gave them my information, let them know that I had availability. So really, you can start out small. It's not quite marketing, but making yourself known. It can really, help you start your business, but that's something that you need to start thinking about as well. So identifying some early solution partners, some of the skills we discussed in our last topic can be covered by the outside parties. Consider the help that you're going to need to keep your business running smoothly. Do you have a team of professionals in place, or do you want one? Some solution partners you'll want to consider include a CPA who would handle your taxes, possibly your payroll, a bookkeeper to record when you receive money, pay money, owe money. They could also run your payroll, submit your billing claims. Some people do use their CPAs as a bookkeeper for payroll purposes, or at least, definitely consult your CPA for how the payroll should be structured, and then you can hand over the rest of that to your bookkeeper. I know starting out, I was my own bookkeeper. I didn't have a lot of claims going out or in, and it really allowed me to understand the process. But I would recommend definitely digging in, doing your research and understanding it better prior to starting it. It did take me some time. A business attorney to review any legal documentation. So some of those documents that we talked about, consent to treat, confidentiality, you're going to have those documents that you need. You can have a business attorney draft them. You could draft them yourself, have them review and approve them. But this will usually be your client and employee contracts that you need reviewing. An insurance agent you'll need for liability insurance for yourself and any employees providing services. You may also want to provide insurance benefits to salaried staff in the future. Credentialing, we talked about. If you want help with credentialing, there are experts out there who can assist you with the process. It really varies from payer to payer. So having someone there to, give you that guidance initially, or even fully do the process for you could really be helpful. And lastly, we have technology partners. So consider your software options for record keeping, data collection, billing, all of these pieces of your business that you have going. There's really some great technology out there that can help you manage that all in one place. So for today, wrapping up, if you are currently in the market for software to assist your business needs, CR Essentials is an all-in-one software solution designed for startup and small ABA providers. CR Essentials offers fast and easy onboarding and setup with personalized support for practice management and data collection needs. I personally did not start out with a software, but it was over 10 years ago that I started my business. And there have been so many wonderful things that have come out since then that would have made my life so much easier with the support of a software to have everything in one place. All right, so before we get started with our questions, I wanted to say, don't forget to join us for our next episode in our startup series, Developing a Business Model Canvas for Your Startup ABA Practice. 3 weeks from now, on Tuesday, June 6th, our host, Gabriel Laurie, will map out the key components to identify and incorporate this pivotal early stage. So we're going to really dig into some of the things that I briefly touched on today, including partners, activities and resources, value props, customer relationships and segments, and channels, and more. And as a bonus, attendees will receive a helpful list of resources to reference after the event, including a checklist for ABA startup success. So make sure you sign up for that today. All right. So let me take a look at some of our questions. So one of the questions we had is, how do you start mapping out your timeline? A good way to map out your timeline is really thinking about your ultimate goal and breaking down some of the steps that you had. So what are your priorities? What comes before? So mapping out your why, you have your why, your services. Like for me, I wanted to provide smaller quality care services. So I knew employees were off the table. So I put all the employee documentation kind of to the side. I did kind of structure some of the employee documentation around what I had had in the past, what I liked, what I didn't like, but I kind of kept that as an aside note. So priorities for me were, knowing my client base, looking in the area to see, what was being offered, what wasn't being offered. And then knowing that I needed to get networked with insurances. There weren't many companies in the area that were really doing private pay, and I knew it could kind of be a headache with private pay. So I wanted to offer that, but I wanted insurance to kind of be my priority. So I looked at the main insurances in the area, which were TRICARE, and we had Blue Cross as well. And I looked into networking with them. So I set a timeline if I want to get networked. I want to make sure I have my credentialing in place. I want to start reaching out to clients. So those were my top 3. So really prioritizing where you want to go, setting those deadlines and moving on can really help getting started. Okay, another question. As far as RBTs are concerned, we are unsure if we should hire them full-time or 1099. Are there regulations for this? So like I said, definitely consult the IRS regulations with this, because it's really kind of debatable in the ABA field. I've been on a lot of ABA chat groups where a lot of people are suggesting you can't hire RBTs as a 1099 employee because you are setting their schedule and giving them guidance. So consult an attorney with that. It's kind of really a gray area, I find, in the ABA world. How long does the credentialing process typically take? So you do have your credentialing with CAQH, which is kind of verifying all your documentation, and we will get into that in later episodes as well. That can kind of be a quick turnaround time depending on the documentation that you have readily available. They usually want to see your certification, liability insurance, things like that. Networking / credentialing with the insurance providers can be a little longer. So often insurance providers will ask that you are credentialed with CAQH, because CAQH is verifying your documentation, but there's other paperwork that is involved with the insurance company themselves. So they want, your business information, your tax ID, your NPI, all of that. So it can take, I would say, it really depends. There's been some insurances that I've seen that aren't even taking new providers. So definitely check in your area. I knew Blue Cross, sometimes they're not even taking anyone because they're oversaturated, at least in the Florida area where I was for a little while. Other ones can be 30 days. Some could be a few months. I know Medicaid can take a really long time as well. How many hours per week are you currently working? And how did you avoid poaching when looking for RBTs, BCBAs, and clients? So like I said, with the clients, I'm currently not providing services right now. I am working with CentralReach, so I'm very happy to be on their staff and help them with their clinical platform. But when I was working, I was really only working about 18 hours a week. And that was just worth it for me, for my schedule. I had multiple children at the time. I kept having those babies. So it really let me have the flexibility with my schedule. And I saw 2 to 3 clients a day, between 2 and 3 hour sessions, but I was providing direct services. And then later I started, when I hired RBTs out, I started supervising. But it was, so my work hours kind of went up a little bit more to about 25 hours a week. But avoiding poaching when looking for other staff and clients, really just putting it out there. And, certain areas is kind of a small community anyways. So people here, a lot of people will refer and say, hey, where are you working? I did have some friends that were also BCBAs. So they had different companies in different areas. So sometimes they would refer staff to me, but clients mostly the local offices for pediatricians that were diagnosing, or on base, like I said, for TRICARE clients. Let's see. What's the best LLC, S Corp, or sole proprietorship? So again, this is personal preference. There's a lot of different tax regulations with this. Me personally, I did have an LLC. My husband has his own business. I think he has an LLC taxed as an S Corp. I really am not the one to give you tax advice, but there's a lot of different tax benefits to the different setups. So definitely talk to an accountant. They can set you on the right path. If you plan on being a single member LLC, do you need an NPI-2 number? So you do need an NPI number still, even if you're a single member. Everyone needs an NPI number. How do you work with new behavior tech with modification or may fall into ADA, like transgender anxiety? What type of policy or hiring guidelines do you implement? So that's a good question. That's something I honestly didn't encounter. It wasn't, there wasn't so much awareness at the time. I would really, do research around those needs, have your policies in place, but I would probably base my policies, obviously consult your attorney too on any kind of legal guidelines they have, but then I would also consult some of the people that are looking to work with me on what they need from me to make sure I'm giving them the best support I can. How can one get access to these ABA chats you mentioned? So there's a lot of them online on Facebook, social media mostly is where people are, and then your local ABA groups for any kind of autism awareness organizations. You'll meet a lot of people in the conferences as well. For the rest of our questions, what are some of the cons of having RBTs as employees aside from some of the tax issues? So again, personal preference. I did have some RBTs. It really depends on the person. Honestly, I've had some wonderful RBTs that were really, passionate about becoming a BCBA. And then I had some people that were kind of there for a paycheck. I did have problems with people that didn't show up. Parents that I had for a long time that I transitioned to an RBT after their children were, needing after school hours, that started canceling because, various reasons. And then I found out it was because they weren't a good fit for the RBT. So, the training aspect could definitely be a con because some of the people are newer, especially if they don't have experience. Being present, I really liked to be present. I supervised more than I should have just so they could learn that skill set. RBTs sometimes don't troubleshoot or probe as much as you might. I ran into some people, clients not making progress for a while, but they weren't trying anything new or really looking at what, could be going on. So really, again, personal preference. BCBAs, they if you have a BCBA or BCABA under your employment, their billing is different. You're billing out more for them. It depends on the cut you're taking. You're not having to supervise the other BCBAs, but you kind of run into the chance of them starting to do their own thing. It could kind of defeat the purpose or your why behind having your own practice. So lots of different reasons. Okay. And then look through. I just wrote an employee handbook. Is it necessary to get an attorney? Again, I couldn't tell you if it's necessary or not. Certainly couldn't hurt. It depends on what's in there. I would say I would have somebody review it. It just depends on the documentation that's in there. If you do have, your legal contracts in there, I would certainly have an attorney review it. If you already have it drafted, it's usually not as expensive for them to review documentation as it is for them to create it. Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. If there are any questions that were left unanswered, we will follow up with you via email. And I did see someone ask about the title of the next series. So the next series, we will be discussing developing a business model canvas. So basically a spreadsheet to kind of help you map out your next steps in your planning. All right, again, thank you for all your questions. It was so nice chatting with all of you. Please sign up and join us 3 weeks from now. And if you have time after the webinar ends today, take the time to fill out the survey. It's only a few questions. We love hearing your feedback to help improve for future webinars. Thank you. See you next time.